we went and bought the Necron deck is coming pretty soon, and then we had the Tyranid deck actually showed up earlier. So what I'm gonna say is Necron deck, the Cauldron of Souls is another one I think I might add to the Necron deck because it's you can tap it to put anything that dies back on the battlefield with -1/-1 counters. And I think that's potentially really good for an anti-board wipe and stuff. And also Cauldron of Souls sort of feels decent to me for a Necron deck. So that's an additional card that I would get for that. But now for the Tyrannid things, I was looking over this, and originally I was thinking Mangus would be the best commander, and I think she is really, really good, and you could potentially make a really powerful deck just with her um, by herself. So she doesn't even need the Tyranids or anything. She just X-costed spells. That's basically it. But the thing is, looking over the deck a little bit, here's kind of what I'm getting. I think Swarmlord is the better commander. I think you want to use him defensively early on, building up your mana, and I think you want to put creatures on the battlefield that are bigger than him. So you don't attack with them so much if you're playing like just a casual commander game. You just want the threat of him being there, and then if they blow him up, just be like, all right, if you kill him, he's gonna come back with more counters, and that way you can use him for more card draw. And then just put bigger things on the field because as soon as he can hit the field, you have enough mana to do 5 counters on like another creature. And I would just swing in with those and get more card draws. So you can get the 5 counters to draw a card. Um, and that's pretty much what I'm getting at here. So I'm going to break down kind of what I'm seeing. One thing is that there are 4 cards that can make 1/1 tokens. Okay, so you have 4 cards in the deck that you can use Bryson Starn Killamorph with. So if you run into this card, you can put it on the field in an emergency, but it's best just not to worry about it until you get one of these 1/1 cards in there. Now with Lucia Kane, or yeah, Lucia Kane over here, she's good, but generally when I was using her, the problem was is that you were getting ramp, you were putting spells on the board, but as soon as something went bad or you had a board wipe, you just couldn't rebuild. You didn't have any card draw. There wasn't much you could do, and you were kind of out of the game. So that's kind of the negative here. There's like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There are 13 creatures in here that have like like effects and things, including that dude that we just seen, but they don't really have any overall effects with any of your other creatures or anything. Like they can give them like buffs or do some random effect, but most of these I think are just kind of iconic creatures that they stuck in here. They just do kind of random things in here. Old One Eye's in here. So I mean he's potentially a decent card. And then we even got the sorceries. So I consider the sorceries creatures because they put like a 1 or 2 Tyranids on the field. So it's basically just a creature card. So yeah, a few of those, like 13, that don't really do a whole lot by themselves, but they're still pretty decent. Kind of fill out the deck. Then you have the 4 cards that went with them with 1/1 counters. Then you have, if we count Lucia Kane, all of the lands, all of the mana rocks, all of the things that reduce cost or give you more mana. And then we plus Lucia Kane in here, so that she's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57. So, did I mess up my counts? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I did not. So 57 cards in the whole deck that manipulate, affect, or add additional mana, including the commander themselves. So with Mangless Lucia Kane, she does come in earlier, she does give 1/1 counters, and she does cost a lot less to use. She has benefits. She can copy your X spells, but you can already see that over half the deck is involved with mana, which means it probably works better with Stormlord and bigger creatures overall, and it's probably going to be a little bit slower than most things. So the next thing, so Marcos Lucia Kane, copying X abilities, so when you choose your commander, there's only 11 cards that have basically X cost for the most part in here, as far as I've seen, and a couple of those are board wipes. So you're probably not going to run across it super well. I mean, like 1 in 10 maybe that you find one. So if she is your commander and you find one, it's good, but it's not that big of a deal. However, if she's in your deck, then you still have that like 1 in 10 shot to get one of those cards or her, and if she hits the field, then it's just okay. She's helping you spawn Swarmlord again, because she's going to give you 2 additional mana. And if you find one of those other cards, then it'd be good. But also, there are like, I think 2 cards or 3. There's 2 or 3 cards. I think there's 2 cards that you can get out of your graveyard and put back on the field, which means like, because this deck does not have graveyard recursion really at all. So you have the Hormagaint Horde, which costs 3 after you play land. So eventually you're going to run out of lands. You're not going to be able to get this. I think you have Old One Eye, I think, comes back. And then that means that the other thing you're going to have is your commander, which is going to be Swarmlord. Because you would prefer to have something that you can sink your mana into and keep getting at least one big creature back over and over again. That's about as best you're going to do, because those 3 creatures are going to be what you're stuck with at the end of it, as long as your graveyard don't get exiled. And then, if it does, all you're going to have is Swarmlord. So you want Lucas Kane or you want Swarmlord when you don't have anything left to play? That's going to be the real question. And Swarmlord potentially is the best option for that. Now, the next thing is Swarmlord, although it does come in bigger every time that it dies. I would say you play this, like you kind of just don't put a target on yourself as best you can. You play it, it comes to 7/7, and you just kind of sit. Don't attack with it, don't do anything. When you get those X cost spells or anything like that, use the mana to put those on the field and make them bigger than Swarmlord and attack with those. And then just save Swarmlord until you really have to kind of use it. You don't want to just put a target on its head. You kind of want to make them think, well, if they destroy it now, it's just going to come back next turn bigger. But you want bigger creatures on the field to kind of like take the heat off of Swarmlord for you, because he's a card engine for you. So those X cost spells, there's 11 of them. You want to pay the 5 mana on those as much as you can. So you don't really want to play them until you get the ramp for the most part, because that is the card draw that you have in the deck. You have those 11 cards. You have Swarmlord, which would be 12. And then you have basically 4 other cards that are sort of draw. So that would be potentially 16. But Herald's Horn, actually, this is also a mana ramp, so you're approaching 60 on the mana stuff. Herald's Horn, creatures of the Chosen Tide cost 1 less to cast. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, you may put it in your hand. Not the best draw, but I'm counting it as draw. But it's also a ramp, and I didn't count that, so we're right at like 58 ramp right now, like 58 mana type cards. Then Icon of Ancestry, it's a buff effect. You pay 3, look at the top 3 cards of your library, reveal a creature card of the chosen type from among them and put it into your hand. So basically, pay 3, draw a card for the most part. Then we have Bread for the Hunt. Whenever a creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. That's potentially a really good card. One of your best draws in the deck, so that's important. And then we have Inspiring Call, so you have an instant. Draw a card for each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it. Those creatures get indestructible to end of turn. So it is a defensive card, it is a draw card. It's 3 mana, so potentially you get 1 card, maybe you get 3 or 4, depends. But basically, without those Ravenous cards, you're gonna have 3 cards and or 4 cards, including or not including your commander. So you're gonna have 5 total cards that you can use to draw cards, which you need to get this stuff on the field. Okay? Because any other way, the deck dies. Like as soon as all your stuff's gone, you have no way to recur things. You have no way to get more card draw, and then you're just top decking. And if you don't have enough creatures, then it's not going to do much. If you just put 1 creature on the field, you're not going to be able to block bodies or anything like that. So this deck, you need to get in, get your card draws and stuff. You need to keep it up and keep the pressure on as much as you can, because that's not the craziest thing in the world. All right. Now, removal type cards, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So you have 11 cards that are potential removals. You have basically 2 board wipes and then a third, like, situational exile or bounce attacking creatures. So kind of like 3 board wipes, but really 2 board wipes. So not the best, not the worst. Few of these are creatures. Some of them have Ravenous. I put the Ravager in here, which lets you goad 1 target creature. Technically not removal, but potentially it is removal because you could choose something that's fairly weak or something, force it to attack an opponent. You get 2 things, so yeah, I mean a decent amount of removal stuff, not the best, but the only one that's reusable for the most part. Um, is Scream Killer. So Scream Killer is the 1 removal card that if you run across in here, you want to save it for when you have your Ravenous spells, because whenever you cast a creature with mana value 5 or greater, it does 5 damage to any target. So you can use your commander with it as a removal card. So like if it was on the field, I would potentially start swinging in with my commander so I could resummon it and then deal more damage or deal more removal stuff potentially by resummoning it. Um, Other than that, you don't really have anything that's gonna be able to come back. So these are all you got. One of these only removes, graveyards and stuff. So you're gonna be floating around like, I don't know, three, 4 options for like creatures and artifacts. I think there's only like 3. There's 3 that remove an artifact. There's like, you know, 3 or so that remove a creature, and then you have your board wipe type cards. Not the best, not the worst. Another reason why Stormlord's better is because if you don't have card draw, you're not going to get access to any of these. And also, even though Stormlord can be big, when Lucia Kane comes down, you can cast her multiple times before he comes out. Um, she just doesn't have the ability to dig into the deck fast enough to really do much compared to Stormlord. So, but if anyone like pacifies your Stormlord or like Darksteel beetles it or whatever, you're gonna be kind of sitting in the water. There's not a whole lot you can do. There's no way to sacrifice your stuff. I mean, you could technically, I guess, use one of your removal cards to have it. But you could potentially use like a few of these cards to maybe fight your own commander and kill it, but it'd be very hard. It'd take a lot of mana. Or destroy, but it'd be very difficult. Now, the other sub theme in the deck is 1/1 counters. And so with that, you're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards potentially that you can use to get multiple 1/1 counters on your creatures. One of these is the first Tyrannic War, so it's just a free summon. and then it doubles counters, but I still added it in there because most of your creatures you can get in with 1/1 counters. So, you have hardened scales. So, potentially, if you're going to upgrade this deck, I would say get more things like hardened scales or like doubling season. That's something I would look into more. Like everyone else that upgrades the deck, they're looking at like replacing the Tyranids with like elves and stuff. I don't like that so much. Like technically you could like play around with like, oh, they're Tyranid elves or whatever in your head, like they're just undercover or something. Um and Lucia Kane can be her own commander for pretty much a ton of different decks, especially green. But if I was going to upgrade the deck, I would keep it as Tyranids for the most part, and I would put in things like Doubling Season, um, that give you 1/1 counters, like extra 1/1 counters and extra tokens, would probably be the best. And then like counter spells, like blue has, I know there's at least an enchantment in blue that counters a spell each turn, the first spell each turn that an opponent plays, and then your first spell, I think it copies it. So I'd potentially stick something like that in here, or just counter spells in general if I was going to do anything to this deck. Removing, and if there's like a green spell or like a land or something that you could put in to bring back your creatures, I think maybe having like one or two creature resurrection cards would be really nice potentially. Um, can't know, like these aren't my colors in general, so I don't really know off the top hand. I think there is a green card that does it, but with blue, I know like blue can make things like shapeshifters and like copies of stuff, which you could potentially stick in here to copy some of your things and help out, and they still be Tyranids. Um, but green, I think the doubling stuff would be really good. The problem with that though is that if you're going to do that and you don't have Lucia Kane out, you're not going to get the added benefit basically of her. Like if she's not your commander, you're not going to be able to copy your spells and then get them copied again. And I still don't think if you added those, it would be good. But I think like doubling season would have a place because it doubles the 1/1 counters as well as does the token theme. So I'd probably put that in here. Just so like even when you cast Swarmlord for the first time, instead of being 7/7, it's gonna be a 9/9. So you're basically skipping a turn. And then the next time you cast it, instead of it being a 9/9, it's gonna be like a 13/13. So it speeds the whole process up. And there's other cards that do something similar that you put in here, but I think I would keep it to enchantments, things like that, not any of these alternate creatures and stuff. Potentially, you could swap out the lands for better lands. I think that would help a bit. But there's a lot of ramp in here. You could swap out the ramp spells if you wanted to, but I really like the thematic stuff. I think, though, that if you're going to play the precon and not make any changes, you just need to be aware of what your deck has and like the options that you have for this. So now you know like you have a bit of 1/1 counter stuff, and you have a decent bit of removal. That's basically like that's the three things the deck kind of has in the storm, like sort of similar numbers. You have these 1/1 counter cards, you have Ravage cards, and then you have like removal cards that are all like similarly valued. So you got like 30, let's say you have like 10 of each. And then after that, you basically have 5 consistent draw cards and then 4 token generators. So the main goal is going to be getting as much mana as possible. Use Stormlord for card draw early as best you can. Um, and then get to your Ravenous spells to get additional card draw, so you can get 2 cards instead of 1 with Stormlord. And then if you run into Dyson Starn Kellermorph or hold on to it for the most part until you can get something that makes 1/1 counters. And then out of these 1/1 counter cards, there's 1, 2 that have a copy effect that you could use. Um, but there's no way to resurrect them, so that's it. And then the other two are basically, it seems like these kind of want to go in separate decks. So like if you had the uh One Eye or whatever, he's green, so I think these kind of cards would go with One Eye because they're green and they make those 1/1 tokens and stuff. So I think that would make sense. And then these two feel like they should go into a different deck that has a different commander at some point. They make the 1/1 gargoyles. This is if a creature entered the battlefield, and the other one is when Tyranids deal damage to a player. Yeah. So basically, I would be very cautious about when you play these 1/1 token cards. I would say like if you got board wiped and you had one of these in your hand, I would play it probably after a board wipe would be your best chance to rebuild your board presence. I would hold on to Starn until I found something like this to play with him. Otherwise, I would just have to use him as like an emergency chump blocker or something. Potentially, it could be good if you had like trample or something on a creature as well. The 1/1 counters, it looks like you have a decent chance of finding one of these things. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you have like, I would say probably like basically 8, but 9 cards that can do the 1/1 counters. And then you have, your commander himself. So you're potentially looking at 1 in 10 with 1/1 counters, kind of ability cards. Um, or you're looking at, 10 out of 100. So 1 out of every 10 cards. Very interesting stuff to think about. Just things that you try to break down with your deck. You have like two, I think like 2 or 3 protection cards. I think 2. Because you have Tyrant Guard, and then you have that spell that's draw one, like draw a card, and then your creature's getting indestructible. So Tyrant Guard is a Ravenous card, and then you have the other one. So 2 to 3 protection spells potentially. So I would also be very careful with those, not just using them willy-nilly, because you're gonna need to protect your board. So those 3 or these 2 protection spells, if they come up in your hand, I would be very cautious about just playing them randomly. Especially this Tyrant Guard. If you can copy this and get 2, it'd be way better. Um, yeah, I mean that's basically the best you can get. And then this Hormagaia Horde card is going to be the main card that you're going to be able to use with Lucia. So if you run across this, use it. If it dies, it gets recurred. But if it gets exiled, then you're kind of in the water for the most part. But with Lucia, you're going to be able to use it, get 2, kill off the original, resummon it, get 2, kill off the original, resummon it, and you can also do X for 0 and still copy it and get 1/1. So this is technically an additional card that can give you 1/1 creatures, although at a very, very poor value. So I guess we can move the 1/1 creature cards to 5 instead of 4, although I don't really consider this a token generator. It sort of is, but not really. But basically, this is going to be like when you have nothing left in your deck, this card is going to be what gives you card draw and 1/1 like additional creatures. It's going to be your last legs with like uh old Deadeye or whatever his name is. See if I can find that card. I think he could potentially be his own deck commander at some point. Old One Eye. Yeah, he's 6 and he's just mono green. Potentially, like if they come out with more Tyranids eventually, which I hope they do, and I'm just gonna buy. If they just keep coming out with collector packs, I'm gonna keep on buying the collectors for specifically Necrons, Tyranids, and what you call it, the Tau. If they ever come out with Tau, I'll get some of those. But yeah, six for 6/6 old Deadeye or old One Eye. I think he could be a really good just mono green tiered commander at some point. Comes in with trample. Other creatures you control have trample. Enters the battlefield, you get a 5/5 green tyranny creature token. In the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may discard 2 cards. If you do, return old one from the graveyard to your hand. So potentially really good, but with him, I think I would prefer to have some sort of graveyard recursion to get your creatures back. Thing is, like, he's a commander that if you're playing him out of the graveyard, he gets sniped out of there. It's going to be a problem because you can only do it at a certain period of time. Everything else in here is just a very, so-so creature. Technically, if you wanted to, you could take things like the Red Terror and add it into card draw, just because, like, whenever a red source deals one or more to a player, put a 1/1 counter on the Red Terror. But also, if your commander gets sniped, you're not going to get any card draw off of these. So that's pretty much the gist of all of this that I can really tell you. You're free to play it however you want. That is my take on this. And upgrade wise, if I do upgrade this deck, I don't have any plans to. I prefer to keep it a precon and keep these all Tyranid cards. If I was going to do it, I would keep in some flavorful like green enchantments or something. But for the most part, uh, I just keep it the way it is, and hopefully they come out with more Tyranids later on. And hopefully the breakdown kind of helps you decide what you want to do with it. Because, I mean, I think if you know kind of the odds of the cards and how many that are in there, and what to hold on to, you could potentially play the precon a little bit better. And I think that's where the skill really comes in. And as much as I think that Lucia Kane was supposed to be the better commander, and technically I think she is better, she is stronger. But in this deck, I just don't see it. She doesn't have the card draw to get down into those, 11 X cards. So, and then late game, the worst case scenario with her, you already have the this horde card in the graveyard, and she comes in, and then you just copy this, and you get more of these. So, I mean, that's the worst case scenario for her for the most part, and this deck is one of the 99. Swarm Lord as one of your 99, and you're using the other chick as your commander. If he's not at the top of your deck, you're probably not going to see him. You're not going to get very deep into your deck at all. Um, you might have the mana to play those Ravenous cards, but it's not going to be 100%. At least with Swarm Lord, like if you only have enough mana to like pay 2 or something for it, if it dies, he still lets you draw a card off of it. So I mean, it's something, you know. That's probably the other thing that I would add. Like, if I was gonna change anything about the deck in general, it would just be like green enchantments that do things that I want in the deck, like 1/1 counters or doubling tokens or something. Blue spells that copy spells or basically interrupt spells, blue removals. And then I don't really care much about red. You could do more board wipes, I guess, but you probably don't want board wipes. Recursion would probably be the best thing, but I'm not even sure what you would use for recursion in this deck for green. I don't play green much. I played green, like one of the first decks that I ever built was green, and it was just way too good. I've never really played it since, because I just Rise the Redeemed. Yeah. Alright. I'm gonna head off. Y'all guys have fun, and hopefully this helped you decide what you want to do with the Tyranid deck. I don't know if we'll get a normal version of this. I just plan on collecting this one and just leaving it as is. The Necron deck should be here pretty soon. And I do have some cards that I can use to upgrade it, but I don't know if I'll keep that the same or not, and then just get a second deck version or something later and upgrade that. But when I do, I guess I'll come and like test it out and then tell you about it when I get it done. I'm pretty sure I've already did a video over some of the cards, and but that Cauldron of Souls, I think, could potentially be pretty good in that deck. Artifacts, it can protect you versus board wipes, even if your things come back a little bit weaker. And then your second, that legendary Necron that's in there, if it does happen to be in your graveyard, he can copy the effect as well and save your board state, maybe catch people off guard. So I think it's fine. Potentially two protections. Sort of. It's just one really, but